Have you ever stood up for what's right, only to face unexpected consequences? A Hollywood star walks into a diner, and one brave waitress defends him, but instead of gratitude, she loses everything. This is the story of Ava, a waitress who helped Jason Statham and paid the price. Millie's Diner was a cozy, old-fashioned spot tucked away in a quiet part of Santa Monica. For Ava, a 30-year-old waitress with a warm smile and sharp wit, it was more than just a workplace. After working there for 5 years, she knew every regular's favorite dish and had mastered the art of small talk. The diner buzzed with its usual energy that evening, regulars chatting, students studying, and the soft hum of a basketball game in the background. Ava weaved through the tables, balancing plates and refilling drinks, her thoughts already drifting toward the end of her shift. Then the bell above the door jingled. Expecting another familiar face, Ava was taken aback when she saw none other than Jason Statham walk in. Yes, the Jason Statham, the action movie star. He was dressed casually in a hoodie and jeans, trying to keep a low profile, but his presence was undeniable and the atmosphere in the diner shifted instantly. Whispers spread quickly. Regaining her composure, Ava approached his table with her usual warm smile. "Good evening, sir. What can I get for you tonight?" she asked. Jason's intense gaze softened as he looked up and smiled back. "Just a black coffee and a slice of apple pie, please." "Coming right up," Ava replied, her heart fluttering. She returned with his order, but the diner's regulars had already started to gossip. Most were starstruck, but one man, Greg, sat glaring at the star. Ava ignored the tension, focusing on her work. But it wasn't long before Greg made his move. "Aren't you that Hollywood guy, Jason Statham?" Greg called out. Jason calmly nodded. "Yes, that's me." Greg crossed his arms, sneering. "I've seen your movies. You play heroes. But what do you do for real people in need?" The diner fell silent. Ava's heart pounded. Jason's face was calm, but she could tell he was uncomfortable. "I try to give back where I can," Jason said. "I support charities and causes that matter to me." Greg scoffed. "Sounds like a publicity stunt." Ava stepped forward, her voice firm. "That's not fair," she said. "Jason has done a lot for people. He's funded programs for kids and supported veterans. You don't know what he's done behind the scenes." The room was still. Greg raised an eyebrow. "You really believe that?" "Yes." Ava shot back, because actions speak louder than words. It's easy to criticize from the sidelines, but he's making a difference. Greg huffed and sat back down, but the damage was done. Mr. Whitman, the diner owner, came out from the back, his face tense. "Ava!" He motioned for her to come over. "What were you thinking? You don't argue with customers, especially not regulars like Greg." "I wasn't arguing," she said, defending herself. "I was standing up for someone who was being unfairly treated." Mr. Whitman shook his head. "This is a business, not a debate club. Greg and the others keep the diner running. I can't afford to lose them." "I'm sorry, Ava. You're fired." Ava was stunned. "You're firing me for defending someone." "It's not personal," Mr. Whitman said coldly. "I'll give you a few days to transition out." The next morning, Ava's world felt like it was falling apart. Millie's Diner had been her second home, but now it felt foreign. She had to go in and collect her final paycheck. As she approached the diner, something unusual caught her attention. A sleek black SUV parked outside. Inside, everything was quiet. All eyes were on Jason, sitting calmly in a booth. "Ava," he said, standing as she walked in. "Can we talk?" Ava was still processing. "Why are you here?" she asked, a little confused. Jason smiled warmly. "I heard what happened after I left. I couldn't stand by and let you lose your job because of me." Mr. Whitman nervously hovered in the background, unsure how to handle the situation. Jason turned to him, his voice steady but firm. "You fired her for defending me," he said. "That doesn't sit right with me." Mr. Whitman stammered. It's not like that," she disrupted the diner. "Greg's a valued customer." Jason raised an eyebrow. "So decency isn't valued here?" Whitman said nothing, his face turning red. Jason turned back to Ava. "I've been looking for someone like you, someone with integrity and the courage to stand up for what's right." Ava blinked in surprise. "I don't understand." Jason handed her a business card. "I run a foundation that helps underprivileged youth. We need someone who can connect with people, manage outreach programs, and inspire others. I think you'd be perfect for the role." Ava stared at the card, her eyes wide. "Me? Why?" Jason smiled. "Because real heroes don't need a spotlight. They act when no one's watching. You showed me that yesterday. The next week was a whirlwind. Ava left the diner behind and found herself in a sleek downtown office, working as the outreach coordinator for the Statham Foundation. She was nervous, but the team welcomed her with open arms. Jason himself was involved in many of the projects, and Ava quickly discovered that everything she had defended him for was true. He wasn't just a celebrity with a cause, he was deeply committed to making a difference. One afternoon, as they visited a local community center, Jason pulled her aside. "You know, that day in the diner, I wasn't just there for a coffee, I was scouting places to support. Millie's Diner is in a struggling neighborhood, and I wanted to see if it was worth investing in." Ava's eyes widened. "Are you serious?" He nodded. "Sometimes the best investments aren't in big corporations, they're in people like you." A month later, Ava stood outside Millie's Diner, now under new ownership. Jason had bought the place, turned it into a community hub, and rehired several of the staff, including some of Ava's old friends. Greg was there too, but quieter, more respectful. The incident had changed him. He approached Ava one afternoon. "I was wrong about you," he admitted, "and about him. Thanks for setting me straight." Ava smiled. Everyone deserves a chance to learn. The real surprise came later that evening. Jason gathered the entire team for an announcement. "Ava, you've done more than I could imagine. You've inspired us all. I want to offer you something special." He handed her an envelope. Inside was a check enough to pay off her student loans and buy a small house. Tears welled up in her eyes. "Jason, I can't accept this," he smiled. "You earned it. This is just the beginning." Ava realized then that sometimes standing up for what's right doesn't just change the world. It changes your life too. Ava sat in her new office at the foundation, the check still on her desk. She stared at it, conflicted. The gesture was generous, but something didn't feel right. Why her? Why now? Jason's words echoed in her mind. Sometimes the best investments aren't in big corporations, they're in people. Her phone buzzed, snapping her out of her thoughts. It was an unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. "Is this Ava Bennett?" A deep voice asked. "Yes." "Who is this? My name's Marcus. I need to talk to you about Jason Statham." Her heart skipped a beat. "What about him?" "Let's just say there's more to his story than you know. Meet me at the old pier tonight. Alone." The line went dead. Ava's mind raced. Should she trust the stranger? What could he know? That night, the pier was deserted, the waves crashing against the wooden beams. Ava's breath misted in the cold air as she scanned the shadows. Finally, a figure emerged, a tall man in a dark coat. "You came," he said. "Who are you?" Ava demanded. "What do you know about Jason?" Marcus handed her a folder. "Look for yourself." She opened it, her eyes widening as she scanned the documents, financial records, property transfers, and a list of names. Her name, Millie's Diner. The foundation. Everything was connected. This can't be right," she whispered. "Jason's foundation isn't just about helping people," Marcus explained. "It's a front for something bigger. He finds people like you, people in desperate situations, and uses them to launder money through community projects." Ava's mind reeled. "Why tell me this?" "Why now? Because I was in your shoes once," Marcus said bitterly. "I trusted him too." The next morning, Ava walked into Jason's office, the folder clutched in her hand. He was on the phone, but his expression hardened when he saw her. He ended the call abruptly. "Everything okay, Ava?" She threw the folder onto his desk. "Explain this." Jason's eyes flicked over the papers, his face unreadable. "Where did you get these?" "Does it matter? Is it true?" He leaned back in his chair, his gaze cool. "You don't understand the full picture." "Then explain it to me," she demanded. Jason sighed. "Yes, the foundation has other purposes, but it's not what you think. We help people, Ava. The money might not be clean, but the results are real." She stared at him, stunned. "You think that justifies it?" He stood up, his voice low and intense. "The world isn't black and white. Sometimes you have to play dirty to do good." Ava's mind spun. Everything she thought she knew was a lie. Marcus called later that night. "Did you confront him?" "Yes," Ava said. He admitted everything. Marcus's voice was urgent. "You need to get out. Now. Jason won't let you walk away with what you know." Fear coiled in her stomach. "What do I do?" "Meet me at the diner. We'll figure it out." She grabbed her coat and rushed out, the streets blurring past as she drove. When she arrived, Marcus was waiting. "We need to go public with this," he said. "Expose him." Ava nodded, but doubt gnawed at her. Was she ready to bring down everything she'd worked for, everything Jason had built? Suddenly, headlights swept over them. A black sub screeched to a stop, and men in suits stepped out. Jason was with them. "You shouldn't have crossed me, Ava," Jason said, stepping forward. His face was shadowed but calm. The men with him remained still, watching. Ava's heart raced, but something in Jason's expression made her pause. He didn't look threatening. He looked disappointed. Marcus stepped in front of Ava protectively. "Stay back." Jason's eyes locked onto Marcus. "You've gone too far this time, Marcus." "Enough lies." Ava's eyes darted between them. "What is he talking about?" Jason pulled out a folder identical to the one Marcus had given her. "This is the real story, Ava. Marcus isn't a whistleblower. He's a con artist." Marcus scoffed. "Don't listen to him. He's trying to confuse you." Jason handed Ava the folder. "Read it." With trembling hands, Ava flipped through the documents. They showed bank records, wire transfers, and Marcus's name. He had been embezzling money from the foundation. Jason had discovered it and confronted him, but Marcus had twisted the truth to cover his tracks. Ava's eyes widened. "You used me," she whispered, turning to Marcus. Marcus's face darkened. "You were an easy pawn. I needed someone to get close to Jason and dig up dirt." Jason's voice was steady. "I built the foundation to help people, Ava. It's not perfect, but it's real." Marcus wanted to destroy it for his own gain. Marcus's facade crumbled. He lunged towards Jason, but the men with Jason restrained him. "You think you can stop me? This isn't over," he shouted, struggling. Jason turned to Ava. "I'm sorry you got dragged into this. You deserve better." Tears welled in Ava's eyes. "I didn't know who to trust." Jason nodded. "Now you do." The police arrived shortly after, taking Marcus into custody. Ava stood by Jason, her world still spinning. Days later, the foundation held a press conference. Jason publicly addressed the scandal, exposing Marcus's betrayal and reaffirming the foundation's mission. Ava watched from the sidelines, realizing how much her life had changed. After the conference, Jason approached her. "You could have walked away." "You didn't." Ava smiled faintly. "You gave me a chance when no one else would." "I owe you." He shook his head. "You don't owe me anything. Just keep believing in the good we can do." As Ava walked out of the building, the sun breaking through the clouds, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time: hope. Ava stood outside the foundation's building, the events of the past week swirling in her mind. She couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Marcus's plan. Something didn't add up. Jason had cleared his name, but Marcus's last words haunted her. This isn't over." Determined to dig deeper, Ava returned to the office. She accessed Marcus's old workstation using a password she remembered him entering once. The computer unlocked, revealing emails and encrypted files. One message stood out, marked urgent. Ava opened the email. It was from an anonymous address warning Marcus to silence all loose ends before the foundation's gala. Attached was a list of people, including Jason and Ava. Her heart pounded. Marcus wasn't working alone. Suddenly, the door creaked open. Ava spun around. It was one of Jason's security team members. His eyes narrowed when he saw the open computer. "You shouldn't be here," he said, stepping closer. Ava's instincts flared. "You're part of this, aren't you?" He smirked. "Smart girl. Too bad you didn't figure it out sooner." He lunged at her, but Ava grabbed a paperweight from the desk and swung it, knocking him back. She bolted out of the office, adrenaline pumping. She had to warn Jason. Jason was at the gala, unaware of the looming danger. Ava burst through the doors, searching the crowd. She spotted him on stage addressing the guests. "Jason," she shouted, but the music drowned her voice. She pushed through the crowd. Suddenly, the lights flickered and a loud bang echoed through the hall. Panic erupted. The security member Ava had confronted appeared, holding a detonator. "This foundation ends tonight," he yelled. "Jason, step forward. You don't have to do this." The man laughed bitterly. "You think you're a hero? People like you don't care about the little guys." Ava slipped behind him, grabbing a serving tray. She struck his hand, knocking the detonator free. Jason tackled him as security swarmed. As the dust settled, Ava pieced together the final revelation. The security guard confessed Marcus had been a pawn too. The true mastermind was an investor who had lost millions due to Jason's ethical business decision. Jason turned to Ava. "You trusted your instincts. You saved everyone," she smiled. "I guess some chances are worth taking." The dust settled as the authorities hauled the defeated conspirator away. Ava and Jason stood in the aftermath, silent yet overwhelmed by the revelations. The gala attendees were being escorted out, murmuring among themselves about the chaos they'd witnessed. Ava's mind raced. "You said this wasn't over, Jason. Who's the investor? Jason's expression hardened. Gerald Whitmore, powerful financier. Years ago, I refused to cut corners and take advantage of smaller companies in a merger he proposed. The lost millions. Revenge. Ava whispered. Avenge. Jason nodded. Whitmore's been trying to ruin my reputation ever since. I didn't realize how far he'd go. Determined to confront Whitmore, they made their way to his penthouse tower. The building loomed, shimmering under the night sky. They entered the sleek lobby. Jason's presence opening doors without question. Ava's palms were clammy, but she refused to back down. They reached the top floor, finding Whitmore sitting casually in a leather chair, overlooking the city skyline. He smiled coldly. Jason Statham and the waitress. How poetic. You won't get away with this, Jason stated, voice steady but intense. Whitmore's eyes flickered to Ava. You're quite the disruptor. But pawns rarely change the game. Ava stepped forward. Pawns can become queens if you underestimate them. Whitmore laughed. Do you have proof? Your word against mine means nothing. Jason held up his phone. A recording of Marcus's confession played back. Whitmore's face fell. Before Whitmore could react, police officers entered, summoned by Jason's silent signal. Whitmore's smugness evaporated as he was handcuffed, ranting about his power and connections. You've built your empire on lies, Whitmore said. Jason replied, it ends tonight. Ava watched as the mastermind was escorted out. A sense of closure settling over her. Back outside, Jason turned to Ava. You've done more than anyone expected. I owe you everything. She smiled. Sometimes the right thing is worth the risk. Jason extended a hand. How would you like to work for the Foundation full-time? Ava's eyes widened. Me? Really? You have the instincts and integrity we need. The future needs people like you. Tears welled in her eyes. I'd be honored. Ava's courage changed everything. Despite the deception and risks, she stood up for what was right, helping Jason expose the truth and save lives. In the end, her integrity earned her a new beginning and a place in the foundation she helped rebuild. If you were inspired by Ava's story, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more incredible tales of justice and bravery. And don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Thank you for your support.